My name is Cody Brown, and you've got to meet my family.
Hello and welcome here to Happily Ever Reality. I'm so glad you're here because today we're going to start reading through the Sister Wives book. I've been talking about it for a few months, but I just hadn't sat down and actually started making a video about it. But today is the day. If you don't have the book, that's okay. If you've watched the show, I think you'll be able to follow along. If you do have the book, that's great because for copyright reasons, I cannot actually read it to you. So if you have the book, you'll be able to look back at what I'm talking about and let me know if I left out something you thought was really important down in the comments. With that being said, if you do have a copy of the book, I would be interested in knowing how you think I should split these videos. I was going to just do it chapter by chapter and not do it in parts. So there would be shorter videos, but there would be a lot of videos. The other option is just to do 4 parts. Let me know in the comments. But that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and get started.
I have 3 awesome wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine.
So I want to start out by talking about the book itself. The title is Becoming Sister Wives, The Story of an Unconventional Marriage. And yes, that is marriage without an S. It's funny, knowing what we know now, we know they were really very separate and they weren't all coming together as one very well. So it does seem funny. It seems like it should have said marriages. The authors are listed as Cody, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin Brown. And the cover says that it was a New York Times bestseller. And this is something I know the wives and Cody must have been very proud of because they used to have it in their social media bios. They've changed since then, but on the screen you can see that Mary's Instagram bio still mentions the book itself. It still says that she was the author of a New York Times bestseller. So I can't blame them. If I wrote a book that went #1 or was a part of writing a book that was on a bestseller list, I would probably mention it in my bios as well. The book was published in 2012, so we know this was back before we know all of the stuff that we know now about the Brown family, and it was published by Simon & Schuster. The front cover has a picture of Cody and the wives standing beside him, and they are smiling and just look as happy as can be. And when you turn it over to the back cover, it says a singular story of a plural marriage. And then, of course, it has a summary of what you're going to read. I am going to read a little bit of the back cover. It says, filled with humor, warmth, surprising insights, and remarkable honesty, theirs is a love story at heart, unconventional, but immediately recognizable in the daily moments of trust, acceptance, forgiveness, passion, and commitment that go into making one big, happy, extraordinary family. The Brown family are open polygamists and the stars of the popular TLC reality program Sister Wives. This is their first book. And as far as I know, it is the only book from them, but I am really looking forward to Mary writing a book if she ever does that. I will definitely be reading that on here. Yeah, I would love for Mary to write a book. You know what? I would even love for Robin to write a book because I would love to hear what she has to say about everything that's happened. I don't know if I'd believe it, but I would definitely be reading it. It is 271 pages long. It includes a timeline that just has when the marriages took place, as well as the births of the children, up to Solomon. So Ari is not included in there. And there's some black and white photos. I do have the paperback version of the book. So I don't know if you have the Kindle version or if there's a hardback version, if those would be in color. I have no idea. So that is just some basic info about the book in case you don't have your own copy yet. When you get to the contents page, you will see that there is a prologue, and then the book is split up into 4 parts. Part 1 is matrimony, part 2 is sorority, part 3 is family, part 4 is celebrity, and then there is an epilogue and acknowledgments. Cody has written the prologue and the epilogue. He also writes a part with each wife under the matrimony part. So part 1 for matrimony says, Chapter 1, Mary and Cody. Chapter 2, Janelle and Cody. Chapter 3, Christine and Cody. And you guys know Chapter 4, Robin and Cody. So he's kind of in there throughout the book, though parts 2, 3, and 4 are just the wives. So we are going to go ahead and get started and talk about the prologue that was written by Cody.
Because love should be multiplied, not divided.
prologue of the book starts with Cody talking about being on a press tour for the Sister Wives show. He says he is at the Television Critics Association biannual press tour, at which the networks announced their lineups for the fall. And Sister Wives is going to be introduced, and so he is there along with all of the wives. And he really, at the beginning of this, emphasizes that he grew up on a ranch. He is not a Hollywood type. He can't believe that he's putting makeup on. He can't believe that he's here. This is just not who he is. And I feel like that's really what he's wanting us to know. He also emphasizes that he doesn't look like a polygamist. He actually says he looks more like a surfer dude. So Cody is making it clear he is not what we would think. He is not some Hollywood type that is eager for fame and money, and he is also not some religious fanatic that might not blend in with mainstream society. It actually says, I'm an average looking dude who looks more like a surfer than a religious fanatic. How could I be a polygamist? So it's really important to Cody that we understand that they look like everyday people. We couldn't look at them and see that they are polygamist. He also says that this is a big deal, that the family is coming out public. They are risking their jobs. They're putting their family at risk. Their children could be tormented at school, but I'm tired of hiding. He says he lives like a second-class citizen, and he has been lying about his life. So Cody, according to what we're reading at the beginning, is really ready to let everyone know who his family is. Of course, we know now there is also a big financial gain for this family doing this as well.
I'm a polygamist, but we're not the polygamist you think you know.
It's also really important that we understand that Cody and his family are not a part of the fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He brings up Warren Jeffs. He says they are not associated with him. They do not agree with what he has done. He actually says in the book, while we share belief in the principle of celestial plural marriage, I want to make it clear that the practices of the FLDS have no place in my universe. So it's really important to Cody that we understand that he's not a part of that group. And to be honest, if you've ever watched a documentary about the FLDS and the Warren Jeffs group, if you've read any books about them, it's really clear, if you know the Browns and you know that group, that subset of the Mormon religion, they're not associated. They're very different. And I can't blame Cody for wanting to emphasize this. I would not want to be associated with Warren Jeffs and the things that that group believes in and that group does. So I can't blame him for putting that in here. He brings up the fact that, you know, him and his wives and his children, they wear mainstream clothes, listen to pop music, the kids go to parties, play sports. They really are not trying to separate themselves from like mainstream culture. They want to be a part of it, but they have to lie and hide about the fact that they are polygamists. So that is what is important to Cody in this prologue, is that we understand that. On the Sister Wives show, we have heard them talk about the principle, and they have explained it on there as well. But if you want to understand more about it in the book, it's right there at the beginning. Cody explains the doctrine of celestial plural marriage, also known as the principle. He says that it is a calling, something that you are summoned to do. It's a commandment in our scripture, and it's fundamental to our belief system. He says its intention and design is specific to our personal development and our spiritual growth. He does make a point of saying that even though you may believe in it and you may follow their belief system, that doesn't mean you have to practice it. Some people may never find the right partners to practice polygamy with. But he says, when the opportunity for plural marriage is placed before us and when we are called to it, it seems wise to accept it. He continues on talking about how sacred polygamy is to Mormons, and there is one part of this that I want to read to you. It's just a couple of sentences. It says, "We have to learn to handle our jealousy, contain our aggression. We have to check our selfishness. There's no room for ego in plural marriage." I just wanted to point that out because we know in the future Cody becomes very aggressive. He seems to be angry all the time, and there's definitely a lot of ego there. I just think Cody is someone who is so full of himself. It makes it difficult to like him or even want to watch him. Here's just a little reminder of how Cody talks about himself.
I think she thinks I'm hot. I got nice pecs and a great six-pack abs, but that's all she's interested in.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think of that clip, and also the part where he was really angry and yelling about the knife in the kidney. Cody definitely needed to work on controlling his anger, his aggression, and his ego the last few seasons. I will say I don't think there's anything at the beginning of this book that would be really surprising to viewers of the show. There's just some stuff in there that's sort of funny to read now, knowing how it's all going to unfold. Again, another part of this that seems a little bit funny to read now, it says, I know people probably misinterpret what I do. They probably think I'm wife hoarding, that I'm satisfying my carnality at the expense of my wife's feelings. I know there are people out there who assume I'm some sort of macho pig. Yeah, it seems funny now. I bet at the time, though, if I would have read this when the show was first starting, it wouldn't have been funny. It would have just been like, oh, look at this man who loves all these 4 women and can make it work, and the wives who love each other. And yeah, reading it in the future, there's just parts of it that seem funnier now than they would have been at the time. Going further in this part of the book, Cody talks about how he loves each of the wives differently, but he loves them equally. And he compares it to a mother having a second and third child. She doesn't love the first, second, or third more or less. She loves them all equally, though it is a different kind of love. He says it's the same with his wives, but on a more intimate level. I love them for different reasons, for their different strengths and their different passions and talents. I love them for their weaknesses and their humility, but I don't love one more or less than the others. He also talks about how he is bonded with them, and it's something he's going to need for the rest of his life. He says he's going to need it for the rest of his life, but not in a codependent way. It says, in a way that bonds us so deeply that when I have been away from any one wife too long, I feel an emotional ache. Fast forward to 2020, and it is like he is a different man. We know he can go weeks and weeks without seeing Janelle and Christine and their children, but he can't go very long without seeing Robin and her kids. It's just, you know what, it's sort of like night and day. The things he says here are just not the things that we will see from him in the future. Yeah, we know he can go a long time without seeing the other kids. He also says in the book, I'm not sure if any one of my wives could fulfill my needs. So when he's writing this, he doesn't think any one wife could fulfill his needs, but we know now he says that Robin is his soulmate. Robin is the one he was always supposed to be with. Again, such huge differences from what they were really trying to sell us in the beginning and where we are now. Cody also talks about his own needs. He says, I'm not sure if any one wife could fulfill all of my needs. And then he talks about how his relationships with each wife is different. You know, we know Janelle and him talk about money and business, and he says that with Christine, things are really light, and with Mary, the world is structured and organized. And when Robin came in, she brought along the emotional honesty that required him to start dealing with things he had been avoiding. So he is saying right then from the beginning, each relationship is very different, and he needs more than one to be fulfilled. Yet now we know Robin is the one who was really his soulmate. And I'm just wondering, in the long run, how things are going to work when it's just Robin and Cody. Like right now, it might seem less stressful and things might seem good. I do wonder, based on this, if that's really going to work forever for Cody. The one thing that Cody said that I think has some truth to it is he says that no one in the family has to feel loneliness. I do think between the amount of kids in the family and the amount of adults, there's a lot of people that they can lean on to when they need support. There's a lot of people for them to spend time with. I think where things go wrong is that they might not be lonely, but they can still feel sadness. I think those kids, because there were so many and so many wives, they didn't get the father that they needed. They didn't get to have that really strong relationship with Cody because he was spread out between different homes. I think the wives didn't get the relationships that they needed. So they might not feel loneliness, but I don't think they all got the relationships that they needed and they deserved. So I think there's some truth there, but I just think he failed to see what problems might also come from a family that size. Cody does talk a bit about their finances. He says it is something that they have struggled with, and there have been lean years. It took him longer than he'd hoped to establish himself in a career. He says that the wives are very independent. Many of them have worked full time to support their households, and then if there's extra money, they'll kick it into the family expenses and the larger group expenses. He does say here that changed after they went public. We know Robin entered the family and didn't have a job, and then Christine was staying home with the kids at that point. But Christine also had periods where she had to work. So that is a point of contention with many of us, is the finances in the family and how they were dispersed. Though Cody emphasizes in the prologue here that they make sure it is fair. And the last thing I want to leave you with is something Cody says about their family and their guiding principles. Cody says, I want to stress that equality and fairness are our guiding principles. It ends up being that their guiding principles are not practiced very well, and this ends up being the downfall of the family in the future. But at the point of writing this book, Cody felt like things were very fair. I know we now know so many things that were not fair that were going on at that time. We know the family had a lot of issues, but at this point, this is what they are selling us in this book. You can let me know what you thought if you've read the book. You can let me know about what you thought about the things I said here down in the comments. If you haven't already, go ahead and click like and subscribe. And I hope you come back, because we'll be reading through more chapters of Becoming Sister Wives.